All right, welcome everyone to the first ever Culture Assassins video cast. I am Mike Gibbons and I have here with me Tim Reitsma.
Hey everyone, excited to do the first video cast for Culture Assassins.
Awesome. And so just as a reminder for those of you who may have forgotten about us, we've been on a little bit of a hiatus, but we're back and we're going to be bringing out more content. And what we're doing is bringing the stories of workplace culture to everyone, everywhere. And today we are going to be talking about pandemics because, we're right in the heart of it. We've got, 1.5 million cases around the world, 13,000 here in Canada. It's changing the face of the world, changing how we work. It's a pandemic, a crisis, no matter how you look at it. And I think what we're talking about today, Tim, is can a pandemic be a catalyst for positive cultural change? So is something positive or good going to come out of this? So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question because there's almost a negative, right? A pandemic be a catalyst for something that's positive in the context of workplace culture. And my thought is absolutely it can be. We've seen and heard stories of companies really overnight pivoting to everyone in the office, to everyone being at home. Some companies are thriving and some companies are really struggling with it. But it's changed the way we work overnight. And there's a story I was sharing with you before we hit record,
right,
of a tech company called Clio, who 500 employees around the globe. Everyone's basically working in an office. And I was reading an article today that they're onboarding people remotely. And these people who are starting are getting their technology couriered to them. They're getting welcome packages. They're getting 30, 60, 90-day plans. They're meeting their teams virtually.
Sounds awesome.
And yeah, it's like, okay, cool. When can I start? And so we're seeing that, a positive culture continue on in the face of a pandemic.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty. That is the beauty. And and so there's an article going to be coming out on the blog People Managing People, which I wrote about crisis management. And crises, disasters are often those catalysts for positive change. I think one of my favorite examples is Uber, and back in 2017. They were facing a crisis, a reputational crisis. They had allegations of harassment and this kind of negative culture, and they ended up, the CEO ended up resigning, and they brought in a new CEO to drive some of that positive cultural change. And I think, I see similarities as well between kind of this crisis management and change management. And what are some of the similarities that you kind of see maybe between those two things? Do you have to employ some of the same kinds of things to manage a crisis as you do to manage change?
I think they're one and the same, right? I think a crisis forces you to change, and it forces you to change how you communicate with your peers, with your team. Changes how you work, changes how you think about work. It changes and realigns what's important in life. Not just personal life, but even work. We've heard stories of companies having obviously to lay people off. Millions of people applying for assistance around North America. So, crisis and change, I think, are one and the same.
Yeah, I agree.
But what comes to mind is, as organizations are going through this, right? You can try and hide under a rock, but it's that somebody's going to lift up that rock pretty quick. And what are you going to do? Just scatter and find another rock? Or you just, lean into the vulnerability that our teams need, and lean into the transparency and build trust. You might not know how to quickly pivot. Let your teams know that you're trying to figure it out.
And I think you hit on one of the, trust, I think, is one of those key things that you need for crisis management, change management, and, trust in the leadership, trust in each other, and And so I think that, what this pandemic is going to also highlight is those organizations that have that trust versus those organizations where they need to start building that trust. And so I think that is going to be, that in itself is a positive change that's going to come out of all of this for lots and lots of organizations, which is those that have survived by trusting and working with each other versus those that, every person for themselves kind of mentality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, as we kind of wrap up this video, we want to keep them to, a couple minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes tops, because I know you and I could keep talking for hours on end. And I think, what would be one piece of advice to a leader who's going through this? We're all going through this, but what would be one piece of advice as you've studied a bit on crisis management now, writing an article for peoplemanagingpeople.com, and the kind of similarities between the crisis management and change management?
So I'd say probably two big things. First is communication, and just there is such a thing as too much communication, but always err on the side of more rather than less. And the article that people will be able to find soon will highlight some of the keys around that communication, what it looks like. And then I think the second piece is just adaptability, right? Be willing to adapt. If you've got crisis management plans, be willing to adapt them to the current crisis, because it's unlike anything we've ever seen before. Yeah. And so those organizations that are willing to adapt and willing to allow their employees to work from home and work in different ways, those are the companies I think that are going to survive in the long run.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. It's communication, adaptability to the situation. Love it.
Exactly. So let's wrap this up. And I think one way to wrap this up is this has created positive change for us, and it's been a catalyst for us to create this video cast and do something a little bit different and kind of reignite our own fire. So I'm glad to be back.
Yeah. We've continued our Friday coffees, virtual coffees throughout this pandemic, and I look forward to putting out more short pieces of content that we hope is relevant. So if you do have any thoughts or ideas or a topic that you'd like us to cover, let us know. Reach out to us either on LinkedIn or social media, or through our website, cultureassassins.com.
Exactly. Perfect. Awesome. Thanks, man. Until next time, everyone. Take care.
Take care.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye.